This is Unlawful, so I have to ask, and we've talked about a lot of concepts. We've talked about a lot of different realizations. Do you have an unlawful moment that really crystallizes any of these issues or other issues for you in your career? This is Unlawful.
Yeah, it's hard to say there was a specific moment, but there was a series of moments when in that 5, 6, 7 year range that we were talking about, where I got a passion for understanding how construction companies use lawyers to benefit their business. That was really where my career transitioned, because I stopped focusing so much on what was on my desk and I started meeting with the owners of these businesses and understanding how lawyers either help or hurt them in what they do. I really got out of the office, got into their businesses, asked tons of questions, and tried to learn how I could best help them.
And that's such a good point, right? We all kind of characterize, I'm a litigator, you're a litigator. We all characterize ourselves as business first litigators because no businesses want to deal with us.
No,
right?
I don't want to go to the dentist either, but sometimes I have to.
Right. And I think this is an important lesson. And the even more important lesson, I think, is as a 5th to 7th or 5th to 8th, 6th to 8th year lawyer, how do you do that? Because that's a point in your career where you're a senior associate or whatever the title is. You're expected to know your job. You're kind of expected to know what you're doing. And what you're saying is, you know what? I did that. I was competent. I had all those abilities, but I didn't know the business. So I had to display my ignorance, right?
Yeah. You have to be very vulnerable. And so a lot of that was getting into trade organizations and meeting the people in those trade organizations and donating my time to go to lunch or go to breakfast or drive over to their office and just ask them a bunch of questions. It took time on their part, but it also took time on my part. It was not easy, but I would do it again 1,000 times.
It's funny because it wasn't easy, both because it took time and because you had to find the right people who were willing to take their time as well. But also, I always come back to the first thing you said, which is the vulnerability. Right? And in a job where we're always supposed to know the answers or be able to get the answers or be high accuracy and high accountability, man, that must have been a real task for you.
It was difficult from the standpoint of you don't want to lay your armor down. Right. You don't want to tell them that you're unsure. But what you find in that process is you're collaborating with them to make your services to them better.
Well, and also I think a part of demonstrating that vulnerability to them allows them to be vulnerable to you, because no matter how sophisticated the client, no matter how old or successful the business or how big a brand it is, people aren't used to being in situations that we encounter every day.
That's right.
I think part of our jobs as litigators or just advisors is taking as much weight off of our clients' shoulders as possible. I think you came up with a brilliant way to do it, which is to show them, hey, I'm going to saddle you with educating me a little bit about your business and your industry, and I'll take everything else.
And a lot of times I start that conversation by, I'm an engineering nerd. I'm a construction nerd. You give me the things that you think are over my head because I want to learn them because it'll give us an advantage.
Sure.
So some lawyers say, you handle the science or the math of this problem and I'll handle the law. My tack is just the opposite. It is, I feel like I already know the law. Now you load me up with the science and the math so that I can do both for you and take the load off like we're talking about.
Well, and is that a part of your background? Do you have an engineering or science degree?
So my family was in the construction business. So that's part of where it came from. And then I worked in the construction business coming up. And then I've always worked in the field of construction law. So I had a construction law course as a second-year law student at U of H. And one of the guest speakers who came in is a very well-known construction lawyer in Houston, Bruce Merwin. He negotiates a lot of construction contracts. He introduced me to David Payden, who gave me my first job. Again, that line was pretty straight, but there was certainly some luck involved in connecting those dots.
The other thing that your story and kind of your path shows is that it's okay. Like, it's okay to have an interest and pursue that. Maybe you find out you don't like it, but maybe you find out you really do.
Yeah.
And then you get to dig in. Now that you know everything. Right?
I'm still practicing. I think you are too.
Yeah, no, famous last words, right? How do you maintain that vulnerability? Right? How do you continue to ask the questions and be curious and learn in the way that you did when you didn't know much of anything?
A perfect example is AI, Chat GPT, information systems, document review platforms. There are ways to make our law firm run better that I'm clueless about. And so giving people the platform to present ideas to the firm about how we can do things better, being open to that and listening to that, letting those ideas bake out before just saying no because it's something we've never done before. That's really where a lot of the vulnerability comes from now.
It's interesting you say that because I think that's extremely important. And it's especially important in the legal industry where everybody talks like we're cutting edge, but most firms still use Windows 95. And
Right.
it's always wild to get into that conversation.
Most lawyers move at the speed of dinosaurs.
Yeah, although the one innovation that I think has really taken off, which I wish would die, is senior lawyers using iPads as though they're tools, right?
Oh my gosh.
It drives me crazy. I understand the utility of iPads, but the number of people I've had write me emails to say, hey, you never sent this to me, and I did, it just didn't come through on their iPad, drives me insane.
We have a joke around the office about that separation. So you can use that system, but you will not have excuses if that system doesn't.
No, that's perfect. And look, I've seen people use it effectively. I've seen people use it ineffectively, but you're right. As long as it's not an excuse. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. And I think that we're going to have a hard time boiling this down to 6 to 8 minutes. But like I said, it's always great to talk to great people. And I appreciate you coming on the show. And that's Unlawful.
Appreciate it.